It just ended up being another false promise. Chris Hansen isn't doing this.
I don't know what y'all are seeing, so you should see a big screen that says just the title slide. How's it looking?
I'm seeing that. I'm hearing a lot of background noise.
Jeff, you got to turn the game down. Yep. All right. My Windows keys are not working. All right, let's try that. All right, the wheel mouse works. All right, so a review of the disease triangle. We needed the host, the pathogen, and the environment. What do we have the most control over?
The environment.
Indeed. But in gardening, we can also control the host a little in that we can sometimes purchase resistant varieties, or we can rotate our crops so that the pathogen can't get a hold of the area for reproduction and break the cycle. So we talk about signs and symptoms, and I'm using a leaf spot on my Easter cactus here as an example. Are we looking at signs or symptoms here? What is a sign? What is a symptom?
I'd say that's a symptom.
Okay, it's discolored.
That's a sign.
It's a sign. Tara, why?
Well, now you got me stumped.
Is it because it's a direct action of the thing?
A sign is when you actually see the organism itself. Now, can we see a microbe here?
No.
It's hard to tell. It could be like fungal spores, but we're not exactly sure. All right. It didn't.
So that's a symptom.
It's a symptom, yes. Because you can't tell what's causing it from just looking at it in this case. But what's interesting about this particular one, it has a hole in it when I looked at it under the microscope. Now, most leaf spots are flat, or sometimes the whole leaf bubbles up, but then it changes shape. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to go to the next one. Oh, the pause button goes back to the first, goes to a different slide. That's not good. We were seeing spores there, but we weren't sure. So I will give you that it was a sign there, Tara. So when you have a vector-borne illness, you control the illness by controlling the vector. How did I get muted?
You didn't. You're not?
Okay. Um, and that just derailed my train of thought. If I think more about that, I'll get back to it. So the other thing we have to think of when we look at signs and symptoms, are they actually disease or is it something else? You know, plants don't live in a vacuum. They live in their environment. And sometimes the environment itself can be causing the issue. I mean, we had a storm. We have another one on the way. That can cause a lot of damage. And we talked a lot about soils, but we didn't talk much about the different fertilizers and, you know, how the deficiencies can affect the plants. I'm not going to go into micronutrients this time around, but we'll talk on the different macronutrient deficiencies and one that's very common in the area. So how many people have had a friend ask them about like a pothos that has like one yellow leaf on it and it's like, it's okay?
Me.
I have a very sensitive slide wheel, sorry. So I was out on the island photographing actually sick palm trees, and I came across this live oak. Anyone have an idea what might be wrong with it? I'll give you a hint. They're called inland live oaks for a reason.
Salt.
Salt water.
Yep. They do not like growing on the island. And if you look on the blow up slide, it also has some diseases. It has intraveinal chlorosis. Once it's already under stress from another environmental problem, it's going to have other things go wrong with it. Just like us, when plants are stressed, their defenses go down and they can't fight other things as well. So I took a picture of this palm tree looking at the lower, can you see my mouse here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Looking at this lower frond because it mimics the pattern of palm fusarium, but then I looked at it again and realized these are just older branches that are going to die off as new. Somebody has the TV up too loud.
I'm moving to a different room.
Okay.
I can't get mine to turn it down.
As well, some of us have hearing issues. That's why we talk so loud. As new things come out of the terminal bud, and by the way, this is the terminal bud at the top of a palm tree is the only place where new growth can come from. If this dies, the whole tree is dead. But neat things about monocots is these lower fronds can still supply the tree with nutrients until the tree is done with it and drops it. So kudos to the homeowner for leaving these ugly things on there because they're actually keeping their tree healthier longer. So this is just older growth that it's on its way out. And another thing about the lifespan, I get a lot of things with citrus trees. People are like, what's wrong with my tree? It's not yielding anymore. It's just dwindling. Citrus trees get to a point when they're 20, 30 years old where they're just old. You know, you're not going to be as fruitful as you were in your 20s when you're in your 80s either. And you know, plants have a lifespan too. Some of them live 2 or 3 years no matter what you do, and some of them will live like 30 years. And when those 30 years are up, they're done. Oh, this audio is terrible. Okay, what's going on here is this plant has brown tips here, and I got it from the nursery like that, and you'll be seeing And it also didn't play quite right. But it did go ahead to the new growth, which came by.
What was the problem with the previous one?
Nothing, that's the point.
Oh, okay.
You know, sometimes things are just old. And in the case of those fronds, there was no, it looked at first like palm fusarium, but at second glance, they were just old. Was that me echoing or somebody? It's okay. My audio's going buggy. Okay. So in this case, trace minerals in trace amounts, or you're going to burn just as if you burn them with nitrogen or some other fertilizer. And salt is the most common culprit here. You can also have calcification here. Now, I would have had no way from just looking at this photo what the cause of this issue is, but let's place signs and symptoms again. What do y'all see?
Lots of brown leaves.
Brown tips. What else is it doing?
It just looks unthrifty.
It's wilted. I mean, yeah, palm trees droop. This is a pygmy date palm, but the leaves, the leaflets on each frond are pretty wilted. And what about the color? Is the color right?
No, it's lime green.
It's yellow.
It's yellow.
Yeah. If you look at the terminal bud, though, there are new shoots coming out. So the yellowing usually means it has a nutrient deficiency, but in this case, I happen to know this thing was transplanted very recently. There was another pygmy date palm on the other side of the driveway that was much more mature. Palm trees don't like being transplanted, folks. If you're going to get a palm tree, make sure you get one that's container grown because about a third of them die from transplant. All right, this is a toughie. What do y'all see?
Bare branches.
Yeah.
No leaves on the upper branches.
Wrong place for the tree.
Yeah, the power lines, of course.
Yeah. What's the thing in the foreground?
A
Somebody's
fence.
car. Oh,
That's
the
a
fence?
car. There's a car going by. That is on a busy, busy street. That's on Staples out by Saratoga.
What, the carbon dioxide giving it trouble?
Yes, that's from automobile exhaust. So that's not a disease, but it's environmental damage. And my mentor in Pennsylvania had to deal with a bunch of arborvitae that the very last one was dying, and she could not find any problem with it until she found out that that's where the garbage truck idled every week. And it was the diesel exhaust killing the tree. Now, Now I'd like to add to this, you can see some areas here where it's mushy. Those are the sunburn getting infected by a water mold. So there is a disease here on top of the sunburn.
Lovely.
Yeah, this poor golem jade is just no more.
Flesh-eating bacteria on a sunburn.
Effectively, but remember, water molds are sort of like fungi, but not.
Got a lot more yellow leaves mixed in than there were dark ones. That's some dead material.
Something's eating that leaf.
You're gonna be quizzed on this.
What are you asking?
Does it need
This is the background.
That's a lime.
Samsara.
The leaves look yellow.
There's some brown spots on the leaves, and some of them are only on, they're asymmetrical.
Okay, so there's a brown spot down here. That's probably from a leaf miner. What I was trying to drive home is to teach you the three different types of leaf yellowing. So in the future slides, you could tell me whether it's iron deficiency, potassium deficiency, or magnesium deficiency. So this is iron because it's the yellowing is on the interveinal chlorosis is on the new growth only. If you have magnesium deficiency, it's on the older growth with deformed leaves. If you have potassium deficiency, you will have marginal leaf burn because potassium controls the water flow in the veins and in the stomata, and so you don't have water getting to the edges of the leaf, so the edge of the leaf blackens out, almost like a salt burn. All right. So this was background for the next upcoming slides, so that you would be able to participate in those. This was, and the reason I said it's not exactly anemia is to clue you in that this is iron deficiency.
Beth, would you repeat what you said about the magnesium? I got the iron and the potassium, but I missed writing down the magnesium.
Sure. So with iron, the yellow's on the new growth. With magnesium, it's on the old growth, and the leaves become curled and deformed. It's also kind of blotchy, the yellowing. Whereas here you have obvious, clear interveinal chlorosis.
And what about did you say potassium?
Potassium, you have yellowing much like the magnesium, but instead of the curling, you have marginal leaf burn.
What is interveinal chlorosis?
Interveinal chlorosis, okay, necrosis is leaf death, tissue death. Chlorosis is chlorophyll death. Because it happens in between the veins of the leaf, it's interveinal chlorosis.
Can you show one of these leaves that has interveinal chlorosis?
I did zoom into it, but there's a bunch of them here. They're all at the tip here. Can you see how it's green in the veins but yellow otherwise?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
No prob. Everybody feeling good now?
Better, thank you.
Better. Better I'll take. You don't have to be experts on this next.
Till we get to the test.
Is it possible, Beth, to create conditions in which you can get lichen to grow, or is it just something that is naturally occurring?
They colonize where they like, when they like. They're airborne spores.
But we like them.
We do. And we can go down from that because then I screw up the video. Lichens are a good sign of air quality. The homeowners in this area seem to think they're like destroying their trees. It's something we have to deal with on a regular basis. That's why I put it in there. Because people think, oh my God, it's a fungus, it's killing my tree. Here's another one that people also panic about. Who knows what these are?
It's a fern of some kind.
It is a fern. It's called a blue star or blue hair fern, H-A-R-E, like the rabbit.
They're little spores, all the little dots?
They are the spore structures, and they are called sori, and the spores come all out of them. Yeah. And a lot of people look at that and they think there are bugs on their plant, or they think it has a fungus. So this is just nature doing what nature does, and sometimes nature's really weird.
But bugs aren't going to be that uniform.
Not generally, but scale insects sometimes do.
Okay.
All right, so we had our introduction to yellowing and interveinal chlorosis. So here's another example of interveinal chlorosis here. And here's the M on my hand that I did. Oops, what did I do? I scrolled again by accident. I'm sorry. Now that you're all dizzy and about to throw up, this is what I do when my ADHD is getting out of control and I forget things. So now you all know my secret.
It's left hand, huh?
Yeah, I don't know why. So this is the new growth, the old growth, and the margins. So what kind of deficiency is this?
Potassium?
What are you pointing to?
Yeah, can you show new growth, old growth again, please?
New growth is the lower left down here.
Okay.
The old growth is up here with the interveinal chlorosis, and the big one is the detail.
Okay, so what was your question again?
Is it magnesium, iron, or potassium deficiency?
Potassium deficiency.
Magnesium on the old growth.
I'd say magnesium.
Magnesium.
You say the leaves are curled?
Was that one just, it's not curl.
It's
Potassium. The leaves don't curl, and it has marginal leaf burn.
Right.
We had 2 votes for potassium, so let's watch the movie and see what it says.
Are we supposed to be hearing something?
Yeah, I said that I thought it was magnesium at first because The new growth is healthy and the old growth has interveinal chlorosis, but then I noticed the marginal leaf burn on the old growth and there's no deformation. So therefore it is in fact potassium deficiency. And that potassium regulates the plant's breathing. And remember that the plant needs the root and the leaves to breathe separately because their vascular system doesn't transport gases like we have special cells that do that.
So you said that plants need roots and the leaves to breathe separately. Is that correct?
Correct. So the potassium is regulating the breathing of the stomata and the water flow in the plant through regulating potassium sodium channels. You're not going to need to know about potassium sodium channels. That's just a fun fact of how they do it. That's a little molecular bio stuff for those of you who care. All right, the fact that the audio is cutting out, that has me nervous. We're only about halfway through. So I'm gonna not replay videos at this point and I'm just gonna show the slides. So this is the bald cypress and there's one in the front here and one in the back here. And in my hometown in Pennsylvania, we had a problem with people getting larch trees. They're also known as tamaracks. And they're an English tree that sheds its needles. And they're very slow to come back in the spring. And so people would panic because their pine tree had died and they would take a new homeowner would take a chainsaw to it. And we have the same problem here with bald cypress. And also people get upset that the bald cypress has prop roots that pop out of their yard and they want a nice smooth yard. But these are a very rare tree and they're native. And we're trying to reestablish them in their home range. And so it's a case of educating homeowners that it's a deciduous conifer. It's what it does. It's nature being weird again. And if you cut off the prop roots, you're losing its ability to breathe. But because again, they have to breathe through their roots. And the reason they need these prop roots is they live in areas that are very wet. This area is down by the playground in the botanical gardens, and you can see even by this swath of green that it's been so dry and yet there's green grass here, and that's because this area floods on occasion. So they just need to do what that particular plant does. So your turn. I have the environmental conditions that this plant is in. What's the deficiency?
It has intravenous chlorosis, but the new growth looks good.
Magnesium.
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 Excellent. Moving on. We have this ball moss in our area. Anyone know an edible that it's related to?
Pineapples.
Excellent. Does it root into the tree? Is it a parasite?
No.
No.
No, it's an epiphyte. It grows on the outside of the bark, which Dr. Womack told you it is alive or dead?
Alive.
It's alive.
The outermost part of the bark?
Is dead material, yeah.
It's dead by then, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I thought you bit the ball.
So
I thought you meant the mom.
Yeah.
sorry, I'm going too fast. That's just, I have to remember to work at Texas speed. That's my Northeast. Oh, is that video actually going to play? And then we have mistletoe. Can you hear this?
No, it's just squeaky on my
Barely.
end.
I heard it takes all of the nutrition. I think that's what I heard.
Oh, it's choppy. I got you. Okay, so I will stop the video. So mistletoe is a true parasite. It puts its root into the cambium of the host plant. So if we have mistletoe, does that mean we want to go around killing it?
Nah, not really.
It depends on how much you have, because there is a local butterfly that uses this as a host species. And the mistletoe takes several years to complete its life cycle to reproduce. So if we kill all the mistletoe, we're causing the extinction of a butterfly species. So we're not only killing one species, we're killing two. So if you have one mistletoe on a big old tree, it's not going to kill the tree. A good parasite does not kill its host, because then they both die and it can't complete its life cycle. So if you have a plant that's really overwhelmed with it, you might want to take a limb or two off so that the tree isn't, getting the life sucked out of it. But one or two on a large tree is not going to kill it. Good? Good.
Now, with it going in the cambium, that means it's taking out the carbohydrates that are going down to the root system. Okay.
Weird thing about mistletoe, it has chlorophyll and it can make adenosine triphosphate, ATP, from the light parts of photosynthesis, but then it doesn't have what they call the Calvin cycle, the part where it takes, it's missing an enzyme that it can't make sugar with that ATP. It can make other parts of other molecules, but it can't make its own carbohydrates. So it's green, but it needs to be parasitic. There are other parasitic plants. Everyone ever heard of a dodder? D-O-D-D-E-R?
No.
It's related to morning glories, and it has no chlorophyll. And its favorite host plant is tomato. And the baby has to find a host within 24 hours of germination or it dies. But if a dodder gets going, it can really wreak havoc on a garden or a wild area. And yet, it's a native plant. So what do? Do you cause the extinction of a native plant just because it's really aggressive and nasty and parasitic? It's a balance. So again, I'm going to just do my interpretation live here. This is a cactus I bought that is in with other cacti that like the watering I've been doing, but this one has a severe case of crown rot because it apparently needed more drainage than it had. So I'm going to have to scoop all this out and put in better draining soil, because if I don't change the environment, it doesn't matter how much fungicide I apply, or if I remove this part and try to save the part that isn't affected, and spray with fungicide to kill off what spores are left, it doesn't matter if the environment is still bad. And this is an introduction to fungal diseases. We're now going from nature being weird or environmental conditions or nutritional deficiencies to actual diseases. All right, shifting gears. So y'all saw downy mildew already. And what was Dr. Cochran's trick to tell if it was downy mildew? Anyone remember? I just learned this, so I think it's cool. If you look at it under a microscope, you can see little black structures interspersed among it. My old trick was that it comes off in your hand like it's a powder. Downy mildew and anthracnose are water molds, not true fungi, so they're more grayish or brownish, and they're not this white powdery look. Now, the thing about powdery mildew is it sits on top of the leaf, and its structures only go into the leaf a tiny bit, and they don't actually hurt the plant as much as the downy mildew or the anthracnose, which live actually deep in the leaf. So if you have a little bit of downy mildew, you may not need to do anything. Usually it happens when you have wet, cool conditions, and some of our plants are going to be on the way out anyhow because it's like the fall seasonal decline. Two exceptions are bee balm and zinnias actually get it when they're not getting enough water. I don't understand why, but it could be just that, again, a stressed plant is more likely to get sick. Y'all still here?
Yep.
Okay. You got really quiet on me.
I can't write and talk at the same time.
Oh, I'm going too fast again. Sorry.
No, no problem.
So it's a judgment call about, how much is the plant affected, and can you just cut that branch off and throw it away and the rest of the plant is fine? Let me know when I should go again. I'll wait.
We're ready. Go ahead.
We're good.
All right. So roses down here are really prone to this disease called black spot, and it's a fungal disease that happens on the leaves. We deal with it by defoliating them twice a year, just taking all the leaves off, bagging them up, throwing them away. Roses are a little weedy, so they can handle a bit of abuse. The best way to avoid it cultural practice-wise is to water the base, not the leaves, but our humidity is so intense here that sometimes it just happens anyhow. All right, I'm going to let you guys go. What are the signs? What are the symptoms?
Looks like you've got a growth on that left one.
Yeah, okay, so it's deformed. That's a symptom.
It's black.
Black color.
Symptom.
It's a symptom. How about this
The
white
leaves are
stuff
eaten
here?
away. Symptom.
Okay, yeah, that's a symptom of an insect. That's for 2 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
Are those little nubbins in the leaves? Is that something?
Well, the whole bump as a whole, the deformation is a symptom, and that happens by the cells elongating themselves in response to the pathogen. Remember that trick?
Almost looks like a tumor.
It does look like a tumor, but it's not a tumor. But this white stuff on here, that's a sign. That's a mycelium. That's how we know this is fungal. Even though here we have a little bit of a yellow ring around something, which is more typical of a bacterial spot, the fact that we found this white stuff, that's a fungus. Oops, wrong way. I'm hoping this video plays even if we don't have sound, because just looking at the pretty plumeria is not going to show you anything. That's just going to tell you what the host plant is. Are we getting it?
Nope.
Moving a little bit.
All right. So they're prone to a rust fungus. And if I can...
We can see some yellowing leaves.
Would you be able to post this PowerPoint somewhere so I can go back and watch it later?
I'm going to be sharing it with Vince, and he's going to upload it. And is the video choppy as well?
It's a little bit blurred.
And there's the rust fungus right there. Can you see it?
Right.
And there's more up here.
Yes.
Is the bottom of the leaf or the top?
It's like underneath the leaf.
That's the bottom, yeah, underneath.
And as it gets close to autumn, these things become covered with this stuff. All right, I'm going to stop this. And by the end of the year, when these leaves drop off, actually, we cut them off in some cases. We collect them and bag them and throw them away. They have a great spray that they've discovered that's not too damaging to the environment, that they've been able to control this much better at the botanical gardens. This used to be just covered with this stuff. It actually was a challenge for me to find one this time around, and I was able to find it because it was a plant that was shaded by the pavilion and blocked from better wind circulation.
So is that something that environment contributes to, or is that a disease?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So air circulation will help prevent it because you don't have the moisture sitting on the leaf, so the fungus can't grow as easily.
I do have a question on that.
Sure.
You're taking the leaves on several things that you've talked about, and we're bagging them up and putting them in the trash. Can I run those through a worm composter? Will worms take care of fungi?
You know, we can often fight bad germs with good. But I think the official AgriLife state line on that would be, it's not the best approach, but what you do at home is your business.
Okay. That's no problem.
You know, as master gardeners, we have certain policies we're supposed to follow. We are required to follow research-based information.
Okay.
Whatever that information is appropriate.
We can do our own experiments at the house.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I got to toe the party line.
No problem. I've got some badass worms.
Good to hear it. I often have a fallow area where I will not compost, but I have an area where I have beneficials come and deal with a lot of my bugs they would have told me to throw away. But when it comes to certain diseases like crown rot, I've learned I don't mess with crown rot anymore. That goes in the trash. And I use trap crops for some of those bad bugs, and a trap crop does not work unless you actually treat it like a trap crop and throw it out. So that's my one exception with especially spider mite. If I'm using a trap crop for spider mite and it is so infested that, you know, it's overrun, then I will throw that out. But if I have a plant that has spider mite and is just a little ugly from it, I'll put a beneficial next to it and maybe put it in my quarantine area. So gotcha. it just depends. So this is anthracnose on Mexican sycamore. This is a little bit of the right plant in the right place because it's a water-loving plant to begin with, so you have to have the right location for it. And then you have to keep raking up these leaves maybe up to twice a week, because the anthracnose is going to come and find it eventually, because somewhere in the city is somebody who's not taking care of their tree.
Okay.
And in my hometown, we had this problem with dogwoods, and the anthracnose went vascular and would slowly kill the tree. Here, it just seems to be a nuisance disease, where the tree just is constantly dropping leaves and growing new ones, and dropping leaves and growing new ones. But it's still new to the area. It's been like 6 years, so maybe closer to 10 or 15. But in the botanical gardens, it's been about 5-6 years. So what's going on with this pepper?
It looks awful wilted. Leaves
It looks
curled.
awful wilted. Can we tell by looking at it why it's wilted?
No.
Hot.
It's possibly hot. What else could it be?
Old.
Not watered.
Dry.
It could be underwatered. It could also be overwatered, right? I mean, if the roots are rotting and there's no water traveling up those stems. But yeah, I can't fool you guys. This is Capsium annum, which is the same species as our chili pekin, and they like semi-shade, and it's in full bloody sun. It's just not happy.
And on top of that, surrounded by white bricks that reflect more heat.
Although it's heavily mulched, it's got a good 3 inches of mulch there.
Yeah.
So yes, it's hot in South Texas. This is a dusty miller. It's in the shade, but it's still over 100 degrees this particular day. And this dusty miller is a spring fall plant, so it's really not happy.
Right.
So here's a case where you have a plant that, like I said, if you don't water zinnias enough, they get powdery mildew. But if you overwater them, they get root rot. And I will just skip ahead to there.
Dead spot.
So you can't win for losing. The other thing that a moist environment encourages is nematodes. So when these things were just pulling right out of the ground, there were no fibers on the roots. We don't know without going to a laboratory, I learned this on Monday, whether it's a type of root rot of the 4 different common genuses or nematode damage. What we know is it's an environmental thing, and all we could possibly do is plant a resistant plant. Well, these are profusion zinnias, which are already a hybrid that is more tolerant than some of the other old varieties. So here the Botanical Gardens is doing everything they can. They had vinca in here before, which also has its own bacterial wilt disease. Sometimes you just can't win for losing.
Okay.
So what do you do here?
Bag up the soil and toss it.
Well, no. What you can do is try to replant interspersed with a non-susceptible host. So if you think it might be nematodes, you could try putting marigolds in because they kill nematodes. If you... there I go with my wheel again. Stop. Or if you think it might be one of these diseases up here, it's a little early for chrysanthemums, which are fungus resistant. to a lesser extent, actually, again, marigolds are a little fungus resistant. But you can try a fungicide which works on all these things. I wouldn't go broad spectrum throwing fungicides down, but what you can also try is to acidify the soil naturally. And that could be done by interplanting with oxalis, although you have to watch, certain types of oxalis are invasive here. You can mulch with cedar chips or cotton burr compost. In both of those cases, make sure they haven't been sprayed with defoliating agents.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I am just confused. I see a dead plant, and I'm not sure how we got to fungicides. Like, how do you know that? What are you looking at when you see that?
When I pulled these up, and I can go to that further in the, no, I didn't scroll down yet. I can go further in the video to show you. When I pulled these up out of the soil, you can see what the roots look like. They're just bare and as if they've been eaten away. There's hardly any little root hairs on them.
Okay.
And so from that symptom, it could either be nematodes or some sort of root rot.
Okay, thank you.
And so the solutions I'm offering are either for nematodes, which would be planting marigolds, or basil. Basil is great in the garden to kill nematodes in your vegetable garden. And then for root rots, we're talking acidify, or a fungicide, which, if you have to. Depends on how big the bed is. So this is what a healthy root should look like. Look at how the soil is clinging to it. You know, we talked about soil structure and how it clumps together. The plant actually uses those clumps, and then you have all these little hair roots coming around and using that soil, as opposed to where did I pull it out? Now I'm just trying to like scroll around instead of showing the. So I got a little too close to the root rot one, unfortunately. But it's another barren root like that other one I showed you.
Right.
I'm not a professional photographer. Shoot me.
You did it a lot better than I would have done. But if you've got a whole lot of soil around the roots when you pull the plants, then you're in good shape as far as the root goes.
Precisely.
Okay.
So a lot of times when a plant is infected with a disease, it gets in there through a wound, or from pruning, or from something breaking in a storm, or an insect vector comes and makes a wound in the plant with their chewing mouth parts or sucking mouth parts. Here's a case where the plant has a natural opening. The sticky tip of this pistil has to be a little open to allow the sperm to get down to the eggs. And this wilt entered the tip of the flower and worked its way down the stem from there. So what you do with this sort of thing is, you can see it's kind of discolored a little bit here, and then you get to a point here where it's kind of green. So what you do is you cut these off way below that. So you know you're getting all of the disease.
Like 3-4 inches?
Like where you start to see where it's green, you give it another like third of the length.
So what I've done is cut the brown where it's dead, cut it down until I start seeing the green, then go. I usually stop when I start seeing the green, but you need to go further.
You need to go further, and especially you don't want to cut through the brown because you're then inoculating your clippers with the disease, which is in the brown part.
Okay. That's why I'm taking the class.
Can I ask Beth at that point? So should we clean our clippers with each cut then? Is alcohol what we clean with?
Yeah, alcohol is great. You can also use a bleach solution. You can use a little torch if you like.
Okay.
Which brings us to our next thing.
Sterilized tools.
This was a demonstration I did. Unfortunately, again, we're having problems with the video, so it's not going to show. But this was an opposite sort of wilt where it comes up from the bottom. I don't normally keep dead things around. But the very tip of this is still alive. It's just wilted. That's why we call it a vascular wilt. Now, I want to see if I can find the spot where I can show you the cross section. Where I deliberately cut through the disease. I get it into better focus. There. Yes! So I don't know if y'all can zoom in on that. But you should be able to see in these veins right here, you can actually see that the veins themselves are brown.
Right.
And this area here of the outer part of the stem is brown, whereas you got some green over here. Interestingly enough, this pith area here, the white part, that's not really cambium, or those are stem cells. We call them parenchyma or parenchyma, potato patata. But they are undifferentiated cells that can be taken and cultured to make another plant. And that's why orchids no longer cost a couple $100s, because they've figured out how to do that. And that's when we talk about stem cell research, it's named for these cells in the center of a stem. Because they're undifferentiated cells that you can culture and turn into something else. But I will save that lecture for another day. If you want to, have a discussion with me about that, feel free. But just FYI, that's where the term stem cells comes from. And so, yeah, I've just cut through a disease. I've contaminated my... Oh, I got it even better. I didn't know I did that. Oh, shoot. My clippers, so I use 70% alcohol. Just like with COVID, you want something that's strong but not too strong, because if it's too strong, you will send it into a cyst form in some cases, depending on the disease. And then it will just... I mean, yeast does this, it cysts up and then it can last forever, or at least for a few years. We're not supposed to show brand names, but oh well. HEB's everywhere down here. Try to find something that's not from HEB.
Wally World.
So here we can use fire, we can use alcohol, we can use bleach, 10 to 1, but bleach is an oxidizer. It will rust your tools. You must oil them immediately afterward. So the next slide is about oiling. I tend to use flax or linseed oil. You can also use other what they call drying oils. Another really good one is called silicated oil, and it's in the original Rain-X, not the washer fluid, but the heavy duty thick stuff. It also is in Mop and Glow, if they still make that product. I don't know.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
WD-40 doesn't work. WD-40 doesn't work.
Aha! The reason we use WD-40 to make things move that don't is when you have a lubricant on something, dirt gets stuck in that oil. And when you spray WD-40 on it, you're spraying away the old oil and the dirt that's stuck in it. If you spray WD-40 on something to get something moving again, you need to re-lubricate it again.
Okay, that's why I've got PB Blaster, but go ahead.
WD-40 is a light oil. We need to use a heavier oil on our tools to prevent rust. It's great for taking the rust off. How's that? If you got a rusted tool, you can WD-40 to death to get the rust off. But then you need a heavier oil to oil it to prevent the rust from coming back.
I'll buy that.
Okay. And, you know, anything you can use to season a pan works. Like I said, I use linseed oil. You can use lard, although, you know, you might have critters checking out your tools. Viruses are rare, but here, this is a picture of the cucumber mosaic virus, which is unfortunately common here. And to plug their heirloom seed company, St. Clair offers this picture for free. Thank you, St. Clair. This is a picture I took. Oh gosh, this mouse is too touchy. I'm gonna have to yell at my husband for that. Okay, now that you're all sick again, this is the spotted cucumber beetle that spreads it. There's also a striped cucumber beetle that has long stripes that's shaped the same way. It's like green and white. So if it looks like a ladybug, but it's not shaped like a ladybug, it's not a ladybug.
Right.
Other viruses I personally have had in my garden are pepper leaf curl. If you just cut those branches off that are infected, the new growth will grow back okay. Tobacco mosaic virus. Okay, all the things that are related to each other in the nightshade family can cross-infect each other, and tobacco and tomato are in the same group. So someone walks by smoking a cigarette that's infected with tobacco mosaic virus, they can give it to your peppers, they can give it to your tomatoes. And that one, there's no real cure for. So when people are smoking around your garden, go yell at them. And they'll think you're the crazy gardener person. All right, so at the gift shop and the botanical gardens, they have all these wonderful variegated plants. I was taught wrong. So Kelly, you're getting an update on this. You still here?
Yep.
Okay. Turns out this is what the modeling of viruses look like, but most forms of modeling are genetic. Oh gosh, this stupid thing. But the one that is actually viral in our area are coleus. And there are loads of varieties of coleus. There are people who go nuts over coleus. So all those cool varieties of coleus, if you're into that, that's a viral trick. They actually use virus.
But it's beneficial to the plant, though.
It doesn't hurt it.
Okay.
Auxiliary pigments help plants use different wavelengths of light for photosynthesis. So in some cases, it can actually be an advantage depending on the environmental conditions.
I just want to clarify. I have a lot of coleus, 5 or 6 different kinds. So what are you saying about?
They get
The
their
coleus?
different patterns from a virus.
Oh, okay.
Not
Okay.
all viruses are bad is what it comes down to.
Okay.
In fact, we were all born because of a virus. There's a virus that's required for placental implantation. They found it first in sheep, and they said, I wonder if there's one for people too. And sure enough, there's a different one for people. Blown away. I'll wait on that one. And most viruses are neutral. You know, we're not, you know, some ancient bacterium that they used to infect, and therefore they don't infect us. Yeah. So here's Kelly's photos. Citrus greening is a bacterial disease, but it's spread by these guys. Asian citrus psyllid. Now you'll notice there's nothing really wrong with this plant because these psyllids don't have the bacteria in them. So we're lucky that in our area at the moment, as far as we know, we have the psyllid, but we don't have the disease. Other areas have the disease, but not the psyllid. So you're only in trouble if you have both. Now, in our area, we have a wild citrus. This is a disease of citrus, lime prickly ash. This is the host of the giant swallowtail butterfly, and that's why we get giant swallowtails on our citrus. So if you see the psyllid, you're supposed to kill the psyllids, but check before you spray to see if you have giant swallowtail caterpillars, because we don't want to kill them. This is a Texas ebony, so this is not a susceptible host, even though this looks an awful lot like citrus greening. Most notably, the yellowing is very irregular. Like, see how this side is very yellow and this side is still very green? One of the things that's a key marker of citrus greening is it's asymmetrical. There's some really wacky stuff going on with this Texas ebony.
Beth, I'll interrupt you. It would be helpful because it's hard to see your cursor. If you could say the left side, or when you say this, say you're on the left or the right, so we can see where you're at.
I'm sorry. I'm right in the middle. There's a blurry leaf that's kind of hanging down to the right off the middle. And the terminal leaflet of that blurry leaf has one side that's a lot darker than the other. And then the other leaflets on that same blurry leaf are way out of whack. And then just below where I have my native lookalikes thing, there's a cut end. And just below that cut end, there's a leaf that kind of curls off to the right. And it has a really odd shaped yellow area in it. So if you look at all this yellowing, there's another spot about in the lower right, there's a leaf that hangs down from...
Looks like it's curled up.
Yeah. And again, it has lots of areas that are asymmetrical. This one, oh gosh, I gotta stop doing that. So I really thought this might be citrus greening, and I set it in, and they're like, it's not the right host. So if we have this kind of yellowing, what is this instead? Even though it resembles citrus greening quite a bit.
That means that it's deficient in iron.
It's not looking at the new growth.
That's true. It's got a
Although
little wilting to it.
here's some new growth right here in the lower right that is very yellow, so it could be.
Are we back on magnesium?
I think it's magnesium, and you will see this a lot, particularly in citrus type plants. So yeah, it's more likely to be a magnesium deficiency, and I ate a bit of crow with this one. But I left it in the slideshow because it's the only slide I have that looks like citrus greening, and it really does look like citrus greening. Moving on. We're still on bacteria. And citrus greening is a slow death, and there's no cure for it. So the recommendation is to burn the tree. And you're not the one that should tell the homeowner that. This is when you take a sample, send it to the lab, and report it to the Department of Agriculture, and they tell the homeowner. Because a lot of people don't want to let go of their trees. We've had like one case in Corpus Christi ever. So it's in the valley. We don't really have much of a problem with it here. So a typical leaf spot starts out yellow for bacteria, and then the center of the spot dies, and you get the yellow ring on the leading edge where the bacteria colony is growing. And there are very few actual bacterial diseases. Remember that 80% are fungal. One of the guys in my class was just like, okay, so they're all fungal. I'm just going to play the odds. All right, so this is a neighborhood that will not be disclosed that had Phoenix palm decline. This is a disease that's spreading in our area. We're finding out it's infecting more types of palms than we knew. It has been a severe problem in Florida, and it's just getting started here. This is what the homeowner that lost their palms planted in its place, which is kind of hilarious because that's like the first palm tree we knew gets infected by it, which is the Canary Island date palm. Here's some of the debris from cleaning up after it. Here's more debris. Those are what mostly died from it on this street. There's like 3 houses that lost their Washingtonias. This is like why I went to the island. Now here's a house that is being refurbished, and they lost all of their palm trees. And what did they put in? But it's called Phoenix palm decline, and that's the queen palm, the pygmy date palm, and the king palm. And here's a queen palm they're putting in. It's like, guys. But it also infects some fan palms, including the Florida sable. We don't have document cases of the Texas sable yet. Oh, and sable is an Arabic word meaning tough. They also
Meaning what?
Tough or strong.
Oh, okay.
Sable palms put up with the hurricane winds better than like the Washingtonias do. The Washingtonias start out pretty robust, and then they get this long, skinny thing going on. They also put in a foxtail palm. That'll be interesting. Foxtails don't like the cold very much, but they should be okay on the island. Then the next neighbor down put in 2 fan palms. I don't know if you can see way in the background there, past the white truck. And those are very mature palms. Oh, there's also a big pile of debris in the end of the cul-de-sac. Those were palms that were just destroyed. I don't know what species they selected. I'm hoping it's not a susceptible one. But that's really large for transplanting a palm tree. They've got like a 50-50 chance of those trees surviving just because they transplanted a large palm tree. Don't transplant palms. Buy container-grown palms. They're very sensitive little critters. Now, this is also on the island, and this was in a line of standing dead trees, partly ill trees. And what happens with Venus palm decline is you'll see a slow loss in the terminal bud of some fronds dying before they should. And where they start to do that, within a few months, you have a dead tree. And then you have this. When you get to this point, it's an interesting bug. It is not a bacteria per se. It is bacteria-ish.
Jesus.
It can only live in a living host, which means it absolutely needs to have a vector, and we don't know what the vector is. So once it's standing dead like this, it can't spread it anymore. But this is contagious. So our recommendation for that is cut it down and burn it. But if you just wait 2 more months, you won't have a tree anymore anyway. And then it won't be contagious anymore. The name of the organism it has in it, the group of organisms, I should say, is a plasmid or plasm. Did I write it down in the previous slide? Phytoplasma. There we go. Needs a living host. That's really detailed. That's technical schmectical. But it's kind of like a bacteria. That's what you need to know. And that it needs a living host. Now let's see if I can get a better picture. There we go. So we talked about galls. The reason we're talking about galls is that many of them are caused by fungi. The most we commonly complain about here is the fuzzy oak leaf galls. And like about a third of galls, this one's actually caused by an insect. And I know this isn't the insect class, so I didn't know whether or not to include this, but it's the one we get the most calls about. And it's caused by a beneficial wasp that when it finishes its metamorphosis and emerges, the gall doesn't go away. Galls are structures that plants make to protect themselves from a disease or from an insect. It's kind of like a tumor.
They're benign.
Some of them are benign. When I was talking to Dr. Cochran, we talked about crown gall. That is not a benign.
Right.
But this one is. And the problem was, like I said, is the gall doesn't go away when the insect emerges. So you can have one with years and years and years of accumulation of these galls if they're on the twigs. If they're on the leaves, they accumulate over the course of a year as different generations of wasps complete their life cycle. So people get upset about these things because they think they're ugly, but yeah, it's a beneficial insect. And if you can't figure out what's going on, sorry, I was raised Catholic. This is just my little joke. How do I find my Zoom window? Stop sharing. There we go.
If all else fails, pray.
Well, I was recommending just like douse it with the holy water and see if you could, you know, get a demon to come out of the thing. I was talking about an exorcism there. All right. Moving on. How's our time? We have a half an hour. Awesome. I kept that going. Good, good, good. So we can move on to your stuff and play diagnosis. Where is that folder? Let's see, class 31 folders, photos. And back to my Zoom window, I think. Learning as I go here. Any questions about the PowerPoint while I'm at it? I didn't really have the chat windows open.
I have a question on the potassium deficiency and the other ones that we were talking about.
Shoot.
Are those something that you need to specifically figure out what it's deficient in and treat it for that, or are there kind of general fertilizers that treat for most of those things?
Okay, when you're looking at a fertilizer, it may say like rose food or palm food or whatever, but they will all have on them the 3 different numbers. And those numbers are in order by nitrogen, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. So you can pick and choose, but that knowledge, what they have, what you need. I generally worry about over-fertilizing and apply at half the rate they recommend. Plus, they're also trying to sell us more fertilizer.
Is fertilizing something that we should do? Is it something that you would recommend routinely, once or twice a year? Or is it something that you wait until there's a sign or a symptom and fertilize appropriately?
There are seasons for different fertilizers. Nitrogen is a spring fall thing. I usually hit it May and October, immediately after a rain, and not when there's going to be more rain to wash it away. Nitrogen's very mobile. Phosphorus you do when something's about to bloom or set fruit. With the exception of certain plants, you have to know your plant. Like amaryllis, if you fertilize them during their blooming cycle, they'll actually abort the blooming cycle. And then potassium you do just before the dry period and just before the cold period, because plants use potassium to gear up and put up their defenses. It's part of those particular enzymes, and if they are like live oaks or pines, that they make a sap that helps them build up sort of an antifreeze. They need extra potassium for that.
Thank you.
Nitrogen is used primarily for growth. So yeah, some quick tricks on that. Nitrogen is for growth. Potassium is roots, shoots. I'm not potassium. I'm sorry. Phosphorus. Phosphorus is roots, shoots, flowers, and fruits. And then potassium is primarily for water mobility. Sulfur is for making proteins. Iron and magnesium are for making chlorophyll. So that, you know, they're pretty darn important. Iron's like a cofactor. Magnesium is actually magnesium is to chlorophyll as iron is to hemoglobin. So for us, we need hemoglobin for our red blood cells to work. Plants need chlorophyll to make their own food, but it's structurally the same. Sorry.
Not to interrupt, but would you repeat the phosphorus? You said roots, shoots, flowers, and something.
Fruits.
Fruits. Thank you.
It must be true. It rhymes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So do you have 7 bags of fertilizer with different NPK ratios, or do you kind of
I
hesitate to say Miracle Grow because I'm sure that's a very bad word in this class. But is that terrible?
So I have sulfur nitrate, which is an acidifier and provides nitrogen, and that I apply that in the spring and fall, and that is a chemical fertilizer. I also have neem meal, which is a nitrogen fertilizer, which is less strong. And I use that later in the same growing seasons. And the nice thing about the neem meal is it's antifungal and it kills some of the suckers as a systemic, but not spider mite. Neem only works on spider mite as a direct spray. I use ground eggshells and coffee grinds, primarily the coffee grinds as an acidifier, but that is a general fertilizer. It's like a 3-3-3. And that you can apply any time of year, but I apply it very lightly. And like I said, I use it mainly as an acidifier. I have a phosphorus rose food that is from Miracle Grow that I got the first year I moved down here because it was cheap as heck. It was on discount in the clearance aisle at some big box store. I have chicken poop, which is an organic equal level that I use once a year to get the microbes going again. Pineapple loves the chicken poop. I don't know what's with that pineapple, but it went nuts when I put the chicken poop on it. And I have another chemical fertilizer, which is called sulfate of potash, potassium sulfate, and Epsom salts, magnesium sulfate. So I have 3 things with sulfur in them, because I'm always fighting not just our soil, but our water for the alkalinity. When sulfur interacts with water and certain organics, it makes sulfuric acid. And so it's an acidifier.
Thank you.
Are those options with the sulfur animal safe? We have like chickens and goats.
The way I use them primarily is I dissolve them in water and water them in, and I'm using them at a very low concentration because I don't want to acid shock my plants. So yes, the way I use them, it is safe. Do I have my sulfur nitrate labeled in a container that it is acid and corrosive and you don't want to touch this stuff? Absolutely.
Thank you.
The others are not very strong acids. In fact, the magnesium sulfate is neutral and will not acidify unless in the presence of others that are more acidic.
I'm going to play with vinegar for a while and see how that does.
You let me know how that works out.
I will.
Because I'm very curious about that, but I'm not brave enough to try it.
Well, acetic acid is only 5% in a vinegar bottle.
I know someone who used borax because it's boric acid.
Yeah,
but
well, I wouldn't use that.
You can overdose on boron. It is a trace element, but like I said, trace elements need to be in trace amounts.
Right. But acetic acid is just hydrogen carbon chain with a little nitrogen in there. I'm going to try it and see how it works.
Well, my Orgo isn't that good.
Also cheap.
I'm not seeing my prompt to share screen again. Oh, there it is down there. So let's see what this pulls up. So this is one of, I think, Becky's picks.
Yes.
And what we see here is some white stuff all over, I think, a citrus leaf?
Yeah, it looks like citrus.
It's a holly.
The holly?
That's a holly bush. A holly tree. I've had it, and I probably should just cut it down, but I don't want to. It's a holly.
That's interesting because that does...
It's a Chinese holly. I've had it about, gosh, 15 years.
Because, all right.
And it gets worse as it gets cooler.
I think I'm seeing some white flies under here.
Well, it's probably, I get whitefly this time of year. And I just kind of let the big bugs eat the little bugs. But it gets powdery. It gets powdery later on in the fall.
Now I'm really... So now I'm thinking completely different from what I thought in the practice run. Because I thought this was an Asian citrus psyllid, and these were the waxy poops that they make. And now I'm completely stumped. So what do you all see besides a bunch of white stuff? I thought I had this nailed.
Could it be that we're just seeing the white, we're not seeing the structure? Like maybe it's a virus that is infecting the outer part of the leaf?
A virus would have mottling, and it would be more inside.
The leaves on the other side are perfectly green and pretty.
So this is just on the underside of the leaf?
Only on the underside, and as it gets cooler, it gets more powdery, like a mold. Like mold powdery.
If you have white fly, they poop sugar, and if nothing cleans that up, if it doesn't get rain or, I should stop my video. I'll make it easier. That can grow mold on the sugar.
Yeah, I don't think this is completely white fly, because I know pretty much. I mean, Maybe, but I don't think it's completely whitefly because it's all the time.
This is Vince. I think it's white mildew. There's also comes from a powdery mildew fungus. And I went online to look to see what they say, and they say there's like 1,000 different powdery mildew funguses, and they really like holly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My problem was I jumped to the wrong conclusion. And can you still see my browser screen here?
Yes.
All right. So we've got an orange, and this is not citrus scab. It's not canker. It's not rust. There's a little bird pecking going on, but
Go to the other 2 slides, Beth, because the whole tree is affected.
yeah, I see that. I mean, you can kind of see it in the background here.
I thought it was from Roundup being used close by.
Oh, drift.
Yep.
I didn't have a full eye for drift.
Oh.
Mm.
Yeah, chemical drift from another property could totally do this. And people who live near cotton groves have that problem. Cotton fields, they spray an herbicide at the end of the season, and people lose all kinds of ornamentals because of that. What's on the other side of this fence, Marie?
On the other side of the fence, she was spraying. I asked her if she was spraying Roundup around her chicken coop to suppress some grass.
Oh. Roundup works by killing roots.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And I actually learned this, believe it or not, at an Aggie Chats several weeks back. They talked about chemical drift.
So this is the, oh yeah, and here's the chicken coop here.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the unintentional consequences. When you use an herbicide, anything that's nearby, trees put out their roots 3 times as far as they are tall. That's how they don't fall over when the wind blows. And because they need to breathe, those roots are all very close to the surface. The one exception is the mesquite. They have those surface roots, but they also have roots that go down about 200 feet if needed to reach a water table. So these roots are all close to the surface, and anything you spray, my mother killed a beautiful azalea spraying a brick patio because she didn't listen to me. Spectricide, she had to get the most deadly thing she could find.
Before this orange tree did this, there was a Japanese Jew where the chicken coop is, and it had just like almost overnight totally died off. So we went ahead and just, you know, took the chainsaw, cut it down, got rid of it, and then it's kind of like went ahead and built the chicken coop, and then now the orange tree is doing that. I mean, and I hadn't used the Roundup prior to that. I had not.
It's a learning process. Maybe it'll come back. I would recommend actually taking all the oranges off and chucking them. and that, because then it's less of a energy drain on the tree.
So basically, just cut it back, grow, and see if it'll come back. So that's what my husband wanted to do.
Well, you can cut off the dead branches, but I actually wouldn't cut it more than you need because you can shock the plant. And that would just be adding insult to injury. Trees don't heal, they seal. So it's going to have to seal off the damaged roots and regrow root hairs on whatever roots might still be alive. You can try giving it a boost by fertilizing or watering in areas that you didn't spray. So Renee, all right, I think we all can see the symptoms. We got some brown leaves here.
Somebody posted it in a group today.
We have some whiteness on it too. Oh, what was the group feedback?
There was a lot of different opinions. I'm not sure. I know one thing is it kind of looked like they had water splash on here too. Like with, you know, some of these succulents don't like water on them.
Yeah, I definitely see calcification on it. What I'm really drawn to is toward the top right. There's one leaf that has a brown area close to the stem and then a funny color in between the brown and the green. And that's where the disease is progressing through the plant. And it kind of looks mushy there. And that tells me that this is a water mold. And unfortunately, these plants are living sacks of water. And that's the happiest place a water mold could possibly be. And the treatment is to find a cutting that hasn't been infected and let it callus off and plant it in fresh soil that isn't contaminated and throw the rest away. I happen to have this particular disease. I got it accidentally by buying succulents at Walmart. And I will tell you that it's a bugger. And you can pray and try and find a cutting that isn't infected. But I'm going to say, Renee, I'm afraid it's a goner.
It's not my plant. It belongs to somebody else. But and on there, do you think it's from hard water stains, or does it look like it could be a virus or something?
It's a water mold. It's fungus-ish, and I can tell it from that particular leaf, right here, where it's progressing and eating the leaf.
Renee, I think I had pointed out the water stains. I was just saying, I was in that group, that it looked like there had been water splashing on the leaves, which I could see from the water spots, which could have spread something to the leaves.
Yeah, because a lot of things that are succulent, don't like water on them. You have to water from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them don't like the hard water. They need rainwater or reverse osmosis water, which you can get from the water mill machines, the ice machines, or spring water, bottled spring water. It just so happens that in this case, it's not the calcified water that killed it. It's a disease.
Right.
And I happen to know that certain vendors have this disease, and I also know that In my case, now that I have it, if a snail bites my plant, they can spread it to another plant. And as the snails as vectors, I'll touch on this. All of the garden snails in our area, whether they have a ram's horn type shell or a top, like a top shaped shell, garden snails are not native to our area. They are all introduced species. And in the case of the brown garden snail, which is the one that's kind of like a ram's horn shell, that's considered an invasive species. It has babies way too fast, and there's nothing around here that really eats it. A toad will eat them occasionally, but they prefer to eat something else. So they're free range to smash those suckers or throw them out in the middle of the street and let them burn to death or whatever you want to do to destroy them. There are a couple of commercial products to control slugs and snails. I have not had much luck with them, even though some of them are very benign. I found they're not very effective.
Wow, that jade plant looks better than mine. All of the leaves have fallen off of mine, and they're starting to try to grow back, but they just like literally you touch them and they fell off. I got it at, I think, H-E-B.
Well, it's also a problem that vendors tend to overwater stuff because they don't know how to take care of succulents. Tim, you had a bunch. I didn't even get to get through them all.
Well, I can't take credit for all of them, but there's a few.
All right, so this isn't a disease. Who knows what this is?
Miner. Leaf miner.
Yeah, leaf miners. Leaf miners are an insect, and they're somewhere in the spectrum between a wasp and a fly. And this much of a leaf miner on a pepper isn't too bad. If it gets to the point that it's infesting the whole bloody thing, then I would start to defoliate. Is this a plumeria here?
That is a desert rose.
Desert rose, okay.
Okay.
All right, so what exactly is the problem?
You'd see the little black spots here and there, and see the discoloration on the side leaf over there.
All right,
and I've got other versions that are blooming, and for some reason this one seems to be adverse to blooming.
Okay, so we have a black spot. That's a symptom.
And you see the little wilt leaf, the leaf wilt on the one there. You had it a second ago, a little up higher than that.
We have a leaf that's yellowed and curled, and a little bit of brown there. That could be salt related, or it could be marginal leaf burn. And then this guy's really curly.
Yeah.
Now that could,
he might not have made a picture.
That could be from sucking insects, or that could be from magnesium. It doesn't look. It could be magnesium because that's yellow, but that could be yellow because it's moving nitrogen. That brownness catches my eye. What do you use to water this? Is this tap water?
Usually some rainwater.
Okay.
I don't water it very frequently. It's pretty, it doesn't seem to like a lot of water.
So saltburn is out?
Although it is near a saltwater pool. As in 30 feet.
That looks like just moving nitrogen to me. So I think those leaves are just old. Because
that's true.
That's healthy new growth.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The leaves above it look nice and green.
Yeah, the black spot could be a little fungus. It might not be liking the humid environment being close to the pool. Might want a little more air circulation than being up next to a fence.
True, yeah.
The curl, I would say that's probably some sort of sucking insect look up under the skirts from time to time. And if you don't see an actual insect, then neem it. It's probably spider mite. And when you spray neem, only spray neem in the evening, because this has a heavy waxy cuticle and it's going to rip that right off, and it's not going to have any sunscreen, and it's going to burn.
Okay, so no sunscreen then.
No,
SPF,
no.
SPF 50. No.
So neem at sunset.
Yeah.
How long does it take that wax to recover from the neem spray? Like, is it fine by morning?
Honestly, that is what people have said, that it's okay by morning. I personally prefer to avoid neem unless it's a really bad infestation, except for the cooler months, like November through March. Or indoor plants. Indoor plants, I'm not too worried about neeming them.
And if anybody ever needs their hibiscus killed, I'm good at that.
This is screaming spider mite at me. That curl, the browning. You probably have ants that are farming spider mite somewhere on your property. So same thing, neem at sunset.
Yeah, ants in the compost, yep.
And Beth just put the neem on the leaves?
Every surface you can find, the soil, the stems, the top and the bottom of the leaves.
Okay.
Those buggers will crawl down into the soil and try to hide. All right. What are y'all seeing with this one?
Chewing
Insect
damage.
Okay.
But I see some yellowing.
Some yellowing, some brown, some white spots up here.
Mm-hmm.
That could possibly be a snail trail. So this could be snail damage. The other thing it could be is just storm damage. How low to the ground is this, and how moist is the environment?
It's about 3 feet off the ground, and I would say moderately moist. I mean, it's not. It's probably getting water every third day,
Okay.
and it's in a fairly shaded area. I mean, it gets maybe 6 hours of indirect sun.
Oh, they like the shade, though. I would not rule out snails with the shade. They can climb something 4 feet high and hide out until it's better condition. And
What's odd is he only picked that leaf.
you know, if they don't like something, sometimes they'll just, you know, cut bait and go somewhere else.
Wasn't what he wanted on the menu, I guess.
Yeah.
Plenty more to choose from.
The other thing with snail damage is they tend to go for the middle of the leaf, where other insects will go strictly for the edges. But my initial hunch was storm damage until I saw the trails, unless that's bird poop.
Probably not.
Yeah. The other thing about snails in our area is they can carry parasites, so make sure you rinse your food before eating it. Oh, angel wing begonia.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna. My gut feeling is this is sunburn, because they like indirect light.
Yeah, lots of shade.
But I can't rule out a bacterial disease. It's not like we're going to give our plants antibiotics. If it has a lot of leaves, I might just pinch these off and you know.
Yeah, he's pretty healthy otherwise. He has a few of these coming, and it could be because some of his shade got removed. That could be some of it, like when you say sunburn. So
yeah, my gut reaction is sunburn. Rubber trees don't get sunburn.
No.
They love sun.
No. Well, here's some background on that one. So this was a storm damaged plant off someone else's property, and they had me come remove it, throw it away, whatever. Well, I can't hardly do that. I have to take cuttings off of everything.
Yes.
So this was not the last storm, but a previous storm. So it's actually been doing, fairly well for a transplant in the middle of summertime. When you put it in the ground on the 1st of July and you're still here and you haven't killed it and we're at the end of August. So this is the one that has an issue. What is that?
It has a latex. Okay, it's necrotic in the middle, yellow ring. It's got to be bacteria. But I'm like, this stuff has a latex sap.
Yeah.
It's basically an antibiotic on steroids.
Exactly.
But,
hard to kill.
Nature is very creative, and there's new strains of microbes being born every day. And I'll be darned, one found a way to infect this thing. I would take that.
You think
leaf.
It could have had some mechanical damage and then something infected it?
Oh, absolutely. There was a wound that got this in here. I mean, you can see the hole that resulted from the infection, but there was probably some sort of piercing that
fell
put
down
it
or
in
something.
the first place, like a vector of some kind.
Mm.
And there are a lot
was
of
pretty well destroyed from the storm. So.
And there are a lot of things that have latex sap in our area. We have a lot of native euphorbias, for example. But that's amazing. I would take that leaf and send it off to the diseases lab with Dr. Ong, see what he says about that.
Shoot me the address. I'll be glad to send a donor.
Okay, Cutleaf Phil. Phil's got some weed whacker damage. That's a great place for diseases to get in.
Okay. That would make some sense. He was probably too close to the ground. He was an angel flying too close to the ground. Yeah.
But I'm interested in these yellow blotches. Because they're very irregular in shape. Doesn't look like the plant's moving nitrogen or something like up here. That's kind of more normal yellowing. And this brown tip up here, that brown tip up there, that's probably a little salty maybe. Doesn't like our soil 100%.
Does he get too much sun?
They do like shade.
That's what I was thinking was the sun, because I have mine and the tip of it, just like your edges, gets too much sun and it stinks, and the rest of it's in the shade.
Yeah, I have not had good luck with these, so I'm going to punt to y'all on the environmental conditions.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's probably too much sun. He's got about 2 hours, and where he's in that. The rest of the time it's shade, but he lost a little bit of his shade with some overhead cuttings that were going on. And he looks damaged at the ends when you said weed eater. I'm thinking, okay, so now he's kind of drooping more than he's ever been. That's just a collage of all of the maladies. Yeah.
And the okra.
Yeah. Start seeing the white here and there. Of course, you can't hardly kill okra. Generally I just pull the leaves off and, it's very hardy and it comes back. But what the heck is going on here? What the heck is that?
This is a little too blurry for me to see when I zoom in. Let me see if I can get it on the other one. But I have a hunch that we are seeing a sign, not a symptom. See if I can get it up here. No, still a little too blurry. Huh. Yep, right there. Okay, so the good news is it's on top of the leaf. So we got a powdery and not a downy. So you got a little bit of a mildew, but it's not the one that's going to do a lot of harm. You got it very clear here. Actually, no, that looks like, that is the waxy aphid. They make their own sunscreen and hide under it. See how they're all lined up on the vein there?
Yeah.
I think they call them woolly aphids or something like that. But
That
just these other spots that are separate from that, that's a powdery mildew. And it looks like the plant is actually isolating it and keeping it from going places. It might have some natural antifungal properties.
And could that have been a donor from maybe a spent cucumber plant, huh?
No, the thing with powdery mildews is they're host specific. So this is one that's specific to the mallow family. So it might have come from a cotton plant.
Okay.
It might have come from a hibiscus.
Not near there. No. Had squash and cucumber with him, and they're all spent now. So the okra is the only thing remaining in that raised bed.
Okay.
So it's unique to him. Okay.
Might have blown in from a neighbor.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Got a bunch of neat little black spots on this one too. Who do y'all think made all those marks? We've got some suckers coming in and leaving, so that's probably like a stink bug or a weevil kind of a critter. But this one left you a present.
Yeah, especially on that leaf, yeah.
So there's a little bit of necrotic tissue, yellow edge. There's a bacterial something there from a vector. Great picture. I like that one.
Here, you can keep it.
Good Lord, Vince. Is there anyone I should be going to first? We're over time.
Did you get my mango?
Hold on. I'm sharing screen, so I couldn't see who that was.
Oh, it was Carrie.
Let me.
I sent it to you and Vince on Monday.
I did get one that was sent to me and Vince through my president account. I did not download it. Hold on.
Okay, that's fine.
I thought I got them all, but
Paid $80 for that tree and it's declining fast. I'm worried.
I saw. All right, we got it. Hold on. Incoming. So we go back to class 31. Carrie, how are you watering this? What are you using? Tap water?
Yep.
Looks like it wants some acid. Are you a coffee drinker?
Yep.
Give it
But I
your
usually throw it all in my compost. Throw some coffee grinds on there.
Yeah, give it like, well, the first time around, give it like half of the pot for this week, and then after that, give it like a teaspoon every week.
And then all those dark green leaves on the bottom turned brown and fell off already within 3 days.
That could be salt burn, so you're going to have to change it over to so it wants acid and it doesn't want tap water. Okay. So, yeah.
My rain barrel is empty.
So you're going to have to either go to the water mill for 25 cents a gallon or get spring water at HEB for $1 a gallon.
Yeah, no, that's not an issue. So you think that's all it is?
The
calcium and crap in our tap water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No luck at the tap water.
Beth?
Okay, this is a mallow, yes?
Is that mine?
Fig. Looks like
Yeah,
a fig.
that's my fig.
Oh,
is that
okay.
mine? Yeah, fig.
Where do I start? All right, so we have modeling, so it could be a virus, but it's yellowing on old leaves, so it could be a deficiency.
Yeah, all the top leaves on it are fine. It's just the bottom.
And this is a fig, you said?
Yes.
It's not normal yellowing for moving nitrogen. That's more smooth and even. Marginal leaf burn, it could be a potassium deficiency. But in the back, you see leaf curl, which could be a magnesium deficiency. If the leaf curl is more prevalent, like the new growth has leaf curl, then this burn is a salt burn. You can have multiple things going on at one time. That's what it comes down to. So you could have magnesium deficiency and salt burn at the same time, or you could have potassium deficiency and this leaf is curled because it has spider mite or some other sucking critter. So, how do you proceed with this? You said you've been using tap water because you're out of the regular water.
Yep.
Because you'd rather use rainwater anyhow because it's cheap. It comes from the environment.
Well, and I kind of try to save my rainwater for my citrus.
Understood.
Yeah.
I prioritize too, because you also have to decide, which ones you how much do you love this plant is when it comes down to sometimes.
I like my citrus and mango better. But I totally don't mind going and buying 5 gallons of water for $1.
Epsom salt is cheap. To get some magnesium in it, I wouldn't mind throwing down some Epsom salt on this, seeing what happens. The salt burn isn't like throughout the whole leaf. If that's what it is, it's not dying from it yet. The rest of the plant isn't burnt. Meh. It can take a little more.
That doesn't look horrible.
The modeling is a concern. If more leaves become mottled like that, it might have a virus. Some viruses are fatal, some of them are not. Most of them are not good.
Yeah. For the most part, all the new growth looks good. Yeah. Everything else looked good. I took off those bad leaves that I sent you the picture of. I took those off.
Okay. Yeah. And I didn't spend time on the IPM slide. That was a mistake. So the first thing you do is you observe what's going on. We look at it and say, okay, what's going on? Then you monitor it. You watch for a while to see, is it spreading? And then cultural practices. What can I do for an ounce of prevention? And in this case, you know, it's cleaning up down here. It's making sure the environment isn't too wet or too dry, making sure it has proper airflow. And then mechanical stuff, just taking this leaf off. And then we go into our biological and chemical controls. And when we do chemical, we do least toxic first. We follow the label. The label is the law. And besides, it's designed to be most beneficial to us and our pets and our families if we follow the instructions on the label.
And our other plants.
Right. Oh, here's the fig looking much healthier. Yes. Okay.
Is that my picture?
Now it looks like a fig.
Yeah.
So the ill leaf is down there. They got the curl leaf down here, and all these healthy leaves up here. Sure.
Right.
Where's Danny?
There's a little side-by-side action going on here. Can I do that? Is it going to let me do that? No, it's not going to let me do that. Thank you, Windows Media. So after looking at this and seeing there's a little like sunburn here, yeah. So yeah, mechanical control. The rest of it looks healthy. Get rid of the thing that looks sick, and you'll protect the rest of the plant from whatever that was. And if you have some unusual yellowing again on the old growth, throw some Epsom salts at it.
I already did while we were talking. I had some on my bench anyway. I was doing my Jamaican cherry the other day.
The other interesting deficiencies you'll run into occasionally, palm trees need manganese, and I've even had some plants get manganese deficiency. Other than palms, they'll get like a deformed flower, very much like thrips, and hopefully I can show you some thrips problems with the bugs. You never have a thrip, it is thrips. We are way over time. Thank you all who stuck around. Stop share.
Thank you. It was very interesting. I think I could listen to you all night if I didn't have dinner coming out of the oven.
Ditto.
Well, this is my brain on ADHD. It's basically what I run on.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Beth.
Good night. Thank you, Beth.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Beth.